Hey, and welcome back. A little something different for you today. What if we have the verses wrong? What if they're in the wrong spot, the wrong cities? I saw somebody say this online, and it made me start to think. When I first started looking at this, I thought, okay, like these things are set, right? Like people have figured this out. But if you really look at it, the pictures, those are pretty nailed down. There's a few that could maybe move to a different city, but the verses are a lot more flexible. They could fit a lot of different places. Why do people have them where they do? Sometimes it's not entirely clear, and it might not be correct. So that's what I want to take a look at you today. It's a little bit of a hypothetical. I'm not saying this is right, but what if you put verse 2, which is commonly put with New Orleans, and instead you put it with San Francisco? And I think I can convince you that it's at least reasonable. Now, I know this verse has a quote from a book that referred to New Orleans, the quote specifically, but Preiss liked to send people down some strange paths, and he liked to, play some tricks. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that has to be New Orleans, right? Let's take a look. So there's the verse I'm going to use. And the jewels abound certainly sounds like New Orleans, right? And that quote. So it obviously could be New Orleans. I'm not going to tell you it's not. But what if it's not? What if it's San Francisco? At the place where jewels abound. Well, in 1915, San Francisco hosted a huge exhibition, a world fair sort of thing. And they were heavily promoted as the Jewel City. So we've got that. They sold these things called Nova Gems. You could buy a set or maybe just one for $1, and they also hung about 100,000 of them on the Tower of Jewels, which was one of the main attractions of this entire exhibition. The whole thing was massive, attracted 18 million visitors over probably about 10 months, and very well known, right? They put up a bunch of different buildings, and we'll get into some of that. 15 rows down to the ground. Um, well, it was in 1915, so that helps. If you look at the bottom, the exhibit palaces, they have 15 of them listed there. Um, there is different ways you can count to 15. I'm not going to try and completely um, count it out all these different ways, but you can also see there's a drill grounds there that was designed to host up to, I think, 10,000 soldiers doing drills. Just kind of a cool little thing. We were right in World War One at the time. They also tore these buildings down pretty quickly after the fair was over. They weren't designed to last. They were made of wood, um, cheap building materials. While they looked super impressive, they were certainly temporary. All right, in the middle of 21 from end to end. So, depending on how you count where you start, you can definitely make it be 21 um, things or 21 blocks or whatever from end to end. But also, the middle of 21 from end to end is 11, and they built 11 of these, like what they called palaces. Um, and right in the middle of them was the Court of the Universe, which is a pretty cool thing. Some of these pictures are pretty incredible. You wonder how, in some ways, they pulled this off over 100 years ago. It took a lot of money. I think $50 million then, which I think would be half a billion right now. Still seems kind of cheap. There's three buildings that still stand from it, at least, but probably only a three. In that exact area, there's only the Palace of the Fine Arts, which I'll double back to here in a bit. There's also the Watch Palace. Unfortunately, I got kind of excited when I saw that. There's more than three guys. You have five, um, four people standing holding watches, but you still have a Watch Palace, which could come in handy if you're trying to prove this. You've got three wharfs right there at the end, so kind of at the end of the where this fair would have gone up to. You've got three of those kind of isolated. You've also got three, I think, boats parked in the bay there. That's interesting. Again, I'm not trying to necessarily prove this, but to show that you can take these verses and make them work elsewhere. Um, like I said, about 18 million people visited this over 10 months. It was really well attended. It exceeded all their expectations, the Panama Pacific International Exposition. And it was usually packed. And this is where the quote that most people say has to point to New Orleans comes in. Here is a sovereign people who build palaces to shelter their heads for a night. So they called all these exhibition halls palaces. The Palace of Fine Arts, the Palace of Food Production, all these different things. And I think 24 countries, maybe even more from around the world, came and built their own exhibition halls right in the middle of a world war, which these were temporary. They were torn down, most of them, after less than a year. So I think that quote actually fits really well with what happened in San Francisco, better than the St. Charles Hotel in New Orleans, which I do know that that's what the book talks about. I'm sure somebody will pop into the comments and let me know. Um, but that quote describes much better what they actually did, right? Here in San Francisco. You can see there are the palaces. You've got a bunch of different ones, and the Tower of Jewels right there in the middle, the Court of the Universe. Um, there's a really good map. It's the best one I've been able to find, and I put the link on one of these slides so you can find it. All right, then we enter into the last part of the verse that goes with this. Gnomes admire, fays delight, the namesakes meeting near this site. What does that mean? Nobody can tell you exactly, right? If you could nail it, we might find it. In New Orleans, I've got some thoughts too. I haven't just abandoned that. I haven't given up on it by any means. But one thing I did notice about this is how well the Fine Arts Palace lines up with her collar and the the pearl would be like the part of the palace there. You can see it on the map, and if you look at it in real life, it also works. And then just in general, that is a pretty good match for what's going on in that picture and what it would have looked like. It's just something to consider. Um, don't go dig up that whole area. At least if you do, don't tell them that I sent you. But there's a chance I would even look right around there in that area, right? If I if I had permission, of course. Um, there's more times that jewels, or not jewels, that fairies and gnomes pop up if you start looking into this. So this was a book that was written for it. They produced a ton of stuff, and you see some interesting stuff related to jewels, gnomes, fairies. I can post the link on here, but you've got a lot of different things going on. A rainbow fairy, different gems, a jeweled tower. That little guy with his arms crossed caught my attention. You've got the sun right there, the buildings. Her face, it's not a match perfectly for the picture, but it also doesn't look completely unlike what she might look like from head on. You've got pictures like that throughout. Has built a Jewel City Fair, right? Jewel City Fair, like that's pretty good. Even if you want to hold to like what most people accept as the verse, this whole area is interesting. That obviously that use of twain caught my attention right there. Um, People said the Panama Canal cut through, it cut it in twain, right? In two. And so if you want to say Twain's attention links back to this area, I think you can also make that argument. There's a link to this whole booklet. It's interesting to read through it and see what they created over 100 years ago. You've got other incidences of gnomes that I could find. That little guy was in the food products building and pops up on postcards. That's what this is a postcard. Also at the entrance to the Jester's Palace, there was squatting gnomes on either side guarding the entrance. And then inside, it played all kinds of tricks on you, which if you read about fairies, they oftentimes delight in playing tricks on humans. It's one of the common things that pops up in almost every like fairy mythology story that you might read. There's a picture. It's small and it's hard to read, but it has the two gnomes there. It was a really popular exhibit. You've also got the fairy. It was a statue by Carl, I don't know how you'd say that, Group A. It was, I believe, on top of the Italian towers. Now, I can't exactly say what those are, but I'm assuming that they were in the Italy section, the Italy country section, which is right by the Fine Arts Palace. So if that was there, there easily could have been art with a gnome. This place was huge, y'all. Like, they said that, and I kind of don't know if I believe this, but they said that one person could have gone there for 24 hours a day for every day it was open, like 10 months, and not seen everything. I mean, that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, but there was so much going on um, that there could be something intersecting there with those Italian towers. And I know that the word gnome, I think, comes from French originally, so at least one theory of it. So if you found the French one, if it was around in that area, that would help too. So how can you take this and use it to find yourself a casque? Well, obviously I don't know for sure, or I'd probably be trying it myself. Um, but I have some ideas. So the Court of Mines is right here, where my little laser pointer is, and the Court of Flowers is right here. Um, I think you can make a case that, gnomes and fae would delight and admire those two things respectively. Over in this area, it's where you would have found the Jester's Palace, and it's right by the Oriental Village, which is this now horribly racist appearing exhibit. Um, and you've got a ferry up here, right? So somewhere around in here, maybe? You could easily say, I might look. And then I would check around the Fine Arts Palace, just walk around. That still exists, and it would have existed when Preiss was doing this. If you get over into this area, which I don't know how to say it, the Presidio, maybe, I believe that a lot of that was a military base in like 1981 or 82. So I don't think he was crazy enough to poke around on a military base and try to bury something, but you never know. I would highly doubt it personally. Um, these North Gardens are interesting. It's an interesting area, and it's one, again, if you're looking in Golden Gate Park, it easily could be there. But a lot of people have dug there, and a lot of people have looked at everything there um, and come up empty so far. So I think a fresh approach could possibly, bleh, excuse me, could possibly lead to finding some new things. Also, if I'm telling you that this might not be New Orleans, then that means that I've got a plan and a pretty good idea of where I would put the verse that a lot of people use with San Francisco. So stay tuned for that, whether you think I'm crazy or whether you think I might be onto something. All right, have a good day. Stay warm out there if it's freezing where you are. Bye.